Every night at exactly 2:17 a.m., something inside my closet would start breathing. Slow, wet, like someone trying very hard not to make noise. At first I thought it was just the house settling. That's what my mom always said whenever I told her about the sounds. But then the whispering started, and the thing inside my closet began saying my name. Welcome back to Tales of the Dark. Tonight we are talking about a child who believed there was a monster living inside his closet. His parents thought it was imaginary. But sometimes imaginary friends know things they shouldn't. I was 7 years old when the breathing first started. We had just moved into the house after my grandfather died. My parents called it a fresh start, though neither of them ever looked happy there. The house itself felt old. Not normal old, wrong old. Every hallway creaked constantly. The pipes groaned at night, and my bedroom always felt colder than the rest of the house, especially near the closet. I hated that closet immediately. The door never stayed shut properly. Sometimes I'd wake up and find it slightly open even though I remembered closing it before sleeping. Mom blamed the hinges. Dad blamed my imagination. But one night, I saw somebody standing inside it. I remember waking suddenly around 2 a.m. because my room felt freezing cold. At first, everything looked normal. Moonlight through the curtains, my toys on the floor, the closet door slightly open again. Then I noticed the shape behind the hanging clothes, tall, thin, perfectly still, watching me. I couldn't scream, couldn't move. The figure slowly crouched lower inside the darkness until I could barely see its face between the clothes hanging there. And then it whispered softly, "Don't cry." Its voice sounded like a little boy trying to whisper after crying for a long time. I buried myself under the blanket immediately. I stayed there until morning, shaking so hard my teeth hurt. Mom checked the closet afterward, nothing inside except clothes and old boxes. When I told her about the boy, her face changed for a second. Not fear, recognition, but it disappeared quickly. Then she smiled and said, "You have a very active imagination." That became their answer for everything. The breathing, imagination, the whispering, imagination, the footprints near the closet, imagination, but the thing inside my closet knew things it shouldn't have known. One night while I was drawing in my room, the voice whispered softly from inside the closet, "Dad's angry tonight." A few minutes later, I heard my father screaming downstairs. Glass shattered somewhere in the kitchen, then silence. Another night, the voice said, "Mom's crying in the bathroom again." And when I checked later, she was sitting on the floor crying exactly like it said. The thing inside the closet always sounded sad, never angry, never threatening. Sometimes it would ask me questions quietly through the door. What's outside look like now? Do you still have the treehouse? Does Mom still sing in the kitchen? Like it used to live here too. One night I finally asked its name. The closet stayed silent for several seconds. Then the voice answered softly, "You used to know me." Every hair on my body stood up instantly, because something about the voice felt familiar. Not like hearing a stranger, like remembering someone I'd forgotten. The next day at school, we had to draw our families for class. I drew me, Mom, Dad, and the boy from the closet standing beside me. When I got home, my mother saw the drawing while unpacking my backpack. The moment she looked at it, all the color drained from her face. "Who drew this?" I pointed toward the second child beside me, my brother. Silence filled the kitchen instantly. My father slowly looked up from the table. Mom grabbed the drawing so tightly it crumpled in her hands. Then she whispered something that made my stomach turn cold. "You need to stop talking to him." Not stop imagining him, stop talking to him. That night, my bedroom door was locked from the outside for the first time. I remember pounding on it while my parents argued downstairs. Dad kept saying, "He remembers too much already." Mom whispered back, "We should have left that room closed." Then around 2:17 a.m., the closet door slowly creaked open by itself. The breathing returned, and from inside the darkness, the little boy whispered, "They're scared of me." Then after a long silence, he softly asked, "Do you want to know what they did?" I didn't answer the voice that night. I just sat frozen in bed staring at the closet while cold air slowly drifted across my room. The breathing inside the darkness sounded uneven, like the boy had been crying. Then after a while he whispered again, "They told you I was imaginary." My throat felt tight. I remember pulling the blanket closer while staring toward the crack in the closet door. "Who are you?" Silence. Then softly, "My name is Noah." The moment he said it, something inside my head hurt, not physically. Like remembering something I wasn't supposed to remember. Images flashed through my mind suddenly. A treehouse, a little red bike, a boy laughing in the backyard, then everything disappeared again instantly. The closet door creaked slightly wider open, and for the first time I saw part of his face. Pale skin, dark messy hair, one frightened eye staring through the hanging clothes. He looked older than me, maybe 10 or 11, but he didn't look like a monster, he looked scared. "Noah," I whispered quietly. The boy inside the closet smiled sadly. "You remember me a little." Then footsteps echoed upstairs, heavy footsteps. "Dad," the boy immediately backed deeper into the darkness. "Pretend you're asleep." My bedroom door unlocked loudly a second later. Dad stepped inside. The moment he entered, the room became warm again. The cold vanished instantly. He stood beside my bed staring at me silently. I remember noticing how tired he looked, like he hadn't slept in days. Then his eyes slowly moved toward the closet. The door was closed again, completely closed. Dad looked terrified anyway. "Did you hear anything tonight?" I shook my head immediately. He kept staring at me for several seconds before finally leaving the room. But before shutting the door, he quietly said, "If you hear voices in this house, don't answer them." The second he left, the closet door slowly opened again, and Noah whispered, "He lies all the time." The next few days felt wrong. My parents watched me constantly. Every conversation stopped when I entered rooms. Mom began checking my closet every night before bed. Dad nailed the closet shut 2 days later. I remember crying because it scared me. Not because I thought Noah would get out, because I thought he'd be trapped inside. That night around 2:17 a.m., soft knocking came from behind the closet door, 3 slow knocks. Then Noah's whisper, "It hurts in here." I sat beside the closet quietly while moonlight filled the room. "What are you?" Long silence. Then softly, "I'm your brother." Every hair on my arm stood up. "But Mom said she lies." His voice sounded sad again, not angry, like he'd repeated those words many times before. Then I asked the question that changed everything. "Why are they scared of you?" The breathing inside the closet stopped completely, and for several seconds the room became deathly silent. Then Noah whispered, "Because they know what happened downstairs." Downstairs, not the closet, not my room, downstairs. The next morning I started noticing strange things around the house. Little things I should have noticed before. There were scratches on the basement door, deep scratches, like fingernails dragged repeatedly across the wood, and every time I walked near it, I felt freezing cold air coming from beneath the door. The basement was always locked. Dad kept the key hidden somewhere. Whenever I asked about it, he'd get angry immediately. "Stay out of the basement." That became another rule in the house. No basement, no closet. No talking about Noah. But the more they tried stopping me, the more real Noah became. One afternoon while Mom grocery shopped and Dad worked outside, I heard whispering again. Not from upstairs, from inside the walls. I followed the sound slowly through the hallway until it stopped near the attic ladder. I'd never been inside the attic before. Dad never allowed it, but the whispering continued softly above me. "Noah," I whispered. A faint knock answered from overhead. My hands shook while pulling the ladder down. Dust exploded into the hallway. The attic smelled old, wet wood, mold, and something sour underneath. I climbed up slowly with a flashlight. The attic looked mostly empty except for boxes covered in sheets, but near the far corner, I saw drawings taped across the wall, hundreds of them, children's drawings, crayon pictures, family portraits. Most were faded from age, but every single drawing showed 2 boys, me and Noah. I stared at them in complete silence. One drawing showed us playing in the backyard. Another showed us inside the treehouse. Then I noticed the final drawing hanging near the corner. It looked different from the others, darker, messier. The house was colored completely black, and beneath it, someone had written in red crayon, "Dad put HIM downstairs." My flashlight trembled in my hands. Then behind me, the attic ladder creaked loudly. I turned instantly. Dad stood below staring up at me, not angry, terrified, pure terror. "What did you find?" he whispered. I couldn't answer. His face slowly changed the moment he saw the drawings around me, and suddenly, he looked like someone about to break completely. Then from somewhere deep below the house came a loud banging sound. Not upstairs, not inside the walls, from the basement. Boom, boom, boom. The entire house shook slightly. Dad's face went pale instantly. Then another sound echoed upward through the floorboards. A child screaming, not angry screaming, terrified screaming, and I recognized the voice immediately. Noah. Dad suddenly grabbed the attic ladder and yelled, "Get down here now." But before I could move, the voice from below screamed one final sentence. A sentence that made my father freeze completely. He told Mom it was an accident. The entire house went silent after Noah screamed that. Even the banging stopped. Dad stood frozen beneath the attic ladder, staring into darkness like he already knew something terrible was about to happen. Then slowly, he looked up at me. And for the first time in my life, I was scared of him. Not angry scared, real scared, because his face looked guilty. "Come downstairs," he whispered. I didn't move. The attic suddenly felt freezing cold again. And somewhere nearby, I heard Noah breathing softly through the walls. Dad's voice shook harder this time. "Now." I climbed down slowly while clutching one of the drawings in my hand. The moment Dad saw it, all the color drained from his face. The drawing showed two boys standing beside the basement door. And written in red crayon above them were the words, "Noah heard Mom crying." Dad ripped the paper from my hands immediately. Then he grabbed my arm hard enough to hurt and dragged me downstairs into the kitchen. Mom was already there crying. The basement banging had stopped completely now. Only silence remained beneath the floorboards. Dad locked every door in the house before finally turning toward me. "You need to listen carefully," he said. Mom immediately shook her head. "No," but Dad ignored her. He wasn't imaginary. The room suddenly felt smaller around me. Mom started sobbing harder. Dad's hands trembled while speaking. "You had an older brother named Noah." Hearing the words out loud made something crack open inside my head. More memories flashed suddenly. A boy pushing me on a swing, building pillow forts together, laughing in the backyard. Then another memory, Dad screaming. Glass breaking, Mom crying, and Noah pulling me upstairs saying, "Stay in the room." I nearly fell backward from the dizziness. Dad sat down heavily at the kitchen table. He changed after we moved here. That was the same thing they always said about the house. Like the house itself caused everything. Dad claimed Noah began hearing voices in the basement shortly after moving in, talking to people who weren't there, standing outside my bedroom at night whispering to himself. Mom insisted he became violent, dangerous, but the more they spoke, the less I believed them. Because every time Noah talked about them, he sounded afraid, not evil, afraid. Then I remembered the sentence Noah screamed from below the house. He told Mom it was an accident. I looked directly at Dad. "What accident?" Neither answered. Then suddenly the kitchen light flickered, once, twice. And the basement door slowly creaked open by itself. Cold air flooded into the kitchen instantly. The smell hit next. Rotten water, mold, and something else underneath it, something dead. Mom started hyperventilating immediately. Dad stood so fast his chair crashed backward. Then from the darkness below came Noah's voice. Soft, weak, "Ethan." My parents froze, and for the first time I realized they could hear him too. Dad grabbed the basement door immediately, trying to slam it shut, but before he could, something hit the other side violently. Boom, Dad stumbled backward. Another impact shook the entire door. Then another, the wood cracked loudly near the center. Mom screamed. Dad grabbed me hard. "We're leaving." But before we could move, Noah whispered something from the darkness that made Mom collapse completely. "You left me down here." Silence, then crying, not from Mom, from below us. A child crying somewhere deep in the basement. The sound was horrible, not angry, broken, like someone abandoned for a very long time. Dad looked like he was about to lose his mind, and suddenly he started confessing everything. Years ago, during one of their arguments, Noah heard Mom crying downstairs and came to help her. Dad had been drinking, screaming, throwing things. Noah tried protecting her. Dad shoved him, that was it, just one shove, but Noah fell backward down the basement stairs. Snapped his neck at the bottom. Mom wanted police, Dad panicked, and together they hid Noah's body beneath the basement crawl space. Then they told everyone Noah ran away. Eventually they moved houses, started over, had me, but years later they returned after my grandfather died, back to the same house. Back to the same basement, and according to Mom, that's when the noises started again. Whispering inside walls, footsteps upstairs, closet doors opening at night. Noah came back not for revenge, for me, because he knew what Dad really was. Then the basement door exploded open. Darkness poured into the kitchen, and standing at the bottom of the stairs was Noah, but not fully human anymore. Tall, thin, pale skin stretched too tightly across his face. Dark, hollow eyes and bruises around his neck. But despite how terrifying he looked, he wasn't staring at me. He was staring at Dad. Dad backed away immediately, trembling. Noah, the thing at the bottom of the stairs, tilted its head slowly. Then in a voice layered with wet breathing, it whispered, "You said you were sorry." The lights throughout the house suddenly shut off. Mom screamed somewhere beside me. Then Noah moved, not toward me, toward Dad, fast enough to disappear into darkness. And a second later, Dad's screaming filled the kitchen. Dad's screaming didn't sound human. It echoed through the dark kitchen while furniture crashed violently against walls downstairs. Mom pulled me toward the front door immediately, but the house itself suddenly felt alive around us. The walls groaned, pipes screamed, and somewhere above us, every bedroom door upstairs slammed shut at the exact same time. Boom, 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 the entire house shook. Then silence, complete silence. Dad's screaming stopped instantly. Mom froze beside the doorway, trembling violently. "Don't look downstairs," she whispered, but I already had. The basement staircase stood completely dark now. No movement, no sound, only wet breathing drifting slowly upward from below. Then footsteps began climbing the stairs, slow, dragging. Mom started crying immediately. She backed away from the basement, shaking her head over and over. "Noah, please." The footsteps continued upward, step, step, step. Then Noah appeared from the darkness. But this time he looked different, less like a monster, more like a child. His body still looked pale and wrong, but the bruises around his neck had faded slightly. And his eyes, they weren't angry anymore, they looked sad. He stared directly at Mom while cold air filled the kitchen around us. "You said you'd come back for me." Mom collapsed onto the floor sobbing. "I was scared." Noah tilted his head slowly. "So was I." That sentence hurt more than anything else in the story, because suddenly I realized something horrible. Noah died believing nobody was coming back for him. A child alone in darkness beneath the house, waiting. Mom reached toward him trembling. "Noah," but the lights above us suddenly flickered violently. And for the first time, Noah looked afraid, not of Mom, of something else. Then he turned toward me quickly. "Get out of the house." His voice sounded urgent now, terrified. A loud banging suddenly exploded upstairs, not from one room, every room, doors slamming open and shut violently across the second floor. The walls began shaking again, then voices started whispering throughout the house. Dozens of them, not Noah's voice, older voices, angrier voices. And all of them whispered the same thing, "He remembers." Noah grabbed my arm instantly. His skin felt freezing cold. "You need to leave now." The hallway lights burst overhead one by one. Glass shattered throughout the house. Mom screamed again, then from somewhere deep inside the walls. Something started moving, not walking, crawling, fast. The sound traveled through the ceiling directly above us. Whatever moved inside the walls sounded huge. Noah looked toward the ceiling in complete terror. Then he whispered something that changed everything. It followed me back. A long, cracked shape suddenly bulged outward from inside the hallway wall, like something enormous was crawling beneath the wallpaper. The bulge moved rapidly toward us. Mom backed away screaming. Noah shoved me toward the front door. "Run!" The wall exploded. Something impossibly thin crawled halfway out from inside the house itself. Long black limbs bending unnaturally. No face, only a massive mouth stretched open too wide. Its body looked like darkness forced into human shape, and all around it I heard whispering, hundreds of overlapping whispers. The thing unfolded itself slowly from the broken wall while the entire house shook violently around us. Mom collapsed near the kitchen screaming Noah's name repeatedly, but Noah didn't look at her, he looked at me, and despite everything he smiled, a real smile. Like an older brother trying to protect someone one last time. Then he whispered, "Close your eyes." The creature lunged instantly. Noah threw himself toward it. Darkness exploded through the hallway. The lights in the house burst simultaneously, and the screaming that followed didn't sound human. I don't remember leaving the house. The next thing I clearly remember is waking up inside a police car at sunrise wrapped in a blanket. The house behind us had burned almost completely to the ground overnight. Firefighters searched the ruins for hours. They found my mother's body near the kitchen, and beneath the basement crawl space, they found human remains belonging to a missing child named Noah Carter, missing for 18 years. Police ruled his death an accidental fall, but they never explained what caused the fire, or why every officer at the scene reported hearing children whispering inside the burned house after midnight. I'm 24 now, and sometimes, late at night, I still wake up at exactly 2:17 a.m., not because of breathing, not because of whispering, because my closet door slowly creaks open by itself. And standing inside the darkness, I sometimes see Noah watching quietly, not trapped anymore, protecting me. Subscribe to Tales of the Dark, where every story gives you a nightmare. And if you have your own terrifying experience you can't explain, send your story through the comments or email, and your nightmare may become our next nightmare.